It said it was start. I've never seen it do this before, where it says starting and then it doesn't actually start. That's concerning. That's interesting. It hit.
Now, for whatever reason, I don't hear you.
Now we're back. We're
There we
back.
go.
I'm still trying to figure things out. This thing, I'll tell you. It says we're live on YouTube. LinkedIn, of course, does not have me. I'm going to push start again. There we go. This thing, Sardiq, I'll tell you, you think you have it running and then you don't. And then things don't work the way you're supposed to. Technology is great until it isn't. But
Exactly.
we'll get there. We'll get there. It'll be all good. I remember the first time I saw a Sardiq Love. It was at. Were you in Georgia at the training conference when it was down there? The Training Magazine Conference and Expo. That was the first one I went to. I think you were.
I
I
was
think
in
you were.
Georgia, but not Training Magazine.
But,
The only time I've done anything in Georgia is the ATD International Conference.
mhm. I
Yeah.
remember. I just remember seeing you and being like, okay, this guy's brilliant. I know what he's doing. I love what he's doing. He's got his head on right. It's looking great. And then I saw you. I've seen you like I feel like every time I've gone to the Training Magazine Conference and
Hmm.
Expo. And last year took your 3-day course. I won't be taking anything this year, I think, and that's mainly due to Florida's anti-stalking laws.
Mm.
So unfortunately, no, I'll be there. But I'll tell you, Sardiq. By the way, welcome to Lessons from Learning Leaders Live. I'm Dwayne Lester. Joining me today, Sardiq Love. One of the first things that I remember you saying in your class was, "My name is Sardiq Love, and I am a disciple of Bob Pike." I remember you saying that. Can you tell me what that relationship with Bob was like?
Yeah, for all of us who knew Bob, and for those of us who were blessed enough to actually really get to know Bob, it was special. And I was sharing with Dwayne a little bit before we started. I was in Saudi Arabia 2016 or something like that. I was an emerging speaker at that time, focusing on my speaking, and ATD had invited me to speak at the ATD Middle East North Africa conference, and Bob Pike and Jack Phillips and all the big gurus were there. And the reason I got an invitation was not as a keynote, but I was a session speaker, was because I had worked a lot with Saudi Aramco, and ATD knew that, so they knew I would draw people from Saudi Aramco just because of my relationships with. So when I arrived, I got down to the hotel, went down to dinner by myself, and who do I see off to my left? I see those in training, Bob Pike and Jack Phillips having dinner, and by myself. And this restaurant was empty, other than two and myself. And Bob saw me, and he looked over and he's like, "Hey, aren't you that guy last name Love?" Now, for me, I had no idea he even knew who I was or my name. And I said, "Well, yes, sir, I am." He said, "Are you about to eat?" And I said, "Yes." And you know how Bob is. He's like, "Well, come on and join us." And so I
Mm-hmm.
went over and I'm like, wow, I get to, sit with my two gurus. That whole dinner, both he and Jack Phillips turned that whole conversation not about them. It was all about me. What is it I want to do? What am I doing? Who am I? And all that. That single conversation led to mentoring, deep mentoring. Because I've been to Bob Pike sessions at ATD every year, but I had never really talked to him. And that from that point on, both he and Jack took me under their wing personally. And they would ask me at every ATD conference, every training magazine conference, how was I doing, what's going on, and in between. And so I got to know Bob really, really well. So it was very special. Yeah, very special.
Blessed to know the man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. I'll tell you, I was at. I don't remember where I was at. I just remember there was a book sale. I walked in, and here we had Presentation
Mhm.
Essentials by Sardik Love, and you jumped all over signing that for me. So I appreciate
I
that.
did.
Appreciate you doing that. Um, let's talk a little bit about this book before we talk about what it takes to be a master facilitator. How did this book
Mhm.
come around?
So interesting story situation, similar to the Bob Pike story. I wanted to be a speaker, and I recognized this way back in 2009. Ann Bruce, who's the co-author of both of my books, she wrote the first edition of Speak for a Living. It's the red cover, 9-ish, and I went to. She did it. She released it at ATD because they published it. First person in line to get the book signed, and I told her at that point, I can be just like you. Now this was 2009, and she had like a couple hundred people behind me, so I'm sure she was like, yeah, whatever, and she signed it. I went on about my business. Then the stalking began. So I started, and because I wanted, I realized who she was after that, and she'd written this great book, and I took that book, and literally, 2013, we ended up on a conference together. I was on my way to Oman, but on the way, I went out to Anaheim, California, and the ATD chapter out there invited me to keynote and invited her to keynote. We had dinner that night, and we got to know each other more. And then I just blatantly asked her, I was like, I want you to mentor me because I took your book and I'm being a speaker. And she's shocked that I was doing what I was doing with that book. So when ATD, who published the first edition, came and said, we want the second edition, she said, I got the perfect person who actually took the book, used it, and became a speaker. And by that point, so this book came out in 2018. By that point, I had exploded in terms of the speaking side of my business. And so that went really well. So the second book here was written several books. Anne is a prolific writer. She's a screenwriter,
Wow.
script writer behind the scenes in Hollywood. So she's well known, but she's very humble and quiet about it. And so McGraw Hill said, hey, we're about to release a new series for, and we've done research and we think presentation essential. Well, and we want, she was telling Anne, they were telling Anne, we want you and your co-author for that. So can you reach out to see if he'd be willing to do it? I'm scared about it. She's like, Sardik, McGraw Hill wants you to write this book. McGraw Hill, the biggest publisher in the world. She's like, yeah. I was like, I'm in. She's like, wait a minute, hold on. This is a shorter cycle. Normally it's an 18. They want it in 8 months. And I was like, oh,
Ooh.
okay. That book came about. And we wrote that book. It came out in October of 2022. So it's just a little over a year old.
Well, I will have both books linked up in the show notes. So, and of course, there'll be affiliate links because I got kids to feed, right? So,
Absolutely.
we will definitely promote them. And I've actually been working on 10 books every new trainer should read, and this will be on that list. So, appreciate it. So, let me tell you, I sat down for 3 days of master facilitator training with you last year at the training conference, and it was just fantastic. There are so many things that I took from that. One of the things that I took, and we talked about this a little bit ago, was your statement that you're not a master facilitator until you're left with nothing but your mouth, their mind, and their problems. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So, and that quote in particular, I put that quote in there. I think most trainers don't realize how training truly should work. What they may not necessarily always pick up is the fact that everything that's of value began first as a question. And the question is, we are all problem centered focus. Everybody wants us. And when we go to train, typically most training is designed, and we forget about the problems that people have back on the job. We look a 3-ring binder or some policies and procedures. Fairly often fail to actually go and talk to the people who are doing the job and ask them this most operative question. what prevents you from being successful in your job or in the, that's what people want. So when we, and that's the relevancy. So training about the problems that they experience back on the job, the content, you automatically get transfer of training. But for some reason, we don't do that. So about, and I came up with that all about problems. If you focus on problems that they have on the job in your content and delivery, the training will work.
I just finished a book called Little Bets. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or read it. It was a pretty
Mhm.
good book. It was a short book, but it talked about the ideas of innovation. They talked a lot about Steve Jobs, and they talked about Bezos, and how small little bets have astronomical results. One of the things they
Mhm.
talked about in here is the need for people to actually go and be a part of what they're trying to do, to be a part of what their market, really, to be a
Mhm.
part of their market and see what you just said. What are the problems they're facing? Because we talk about this waterfall technique of design where everything's top down and then everything's got to be finished. And then by the time you get this product to market, that there are new problems that nobody even saw coming. And so
Mhm.
when you're able to embed yourself and make these small bets and use more of a design thinking, you can start adjusting and then get the product out that they actually need. So
Mhm.
there seems to be a place for both kinds where you have a product that you put out there that people can take and apply, but when you actually start consulting and working with people, you can't just bring a one size fits all kind of program or mindset. You have to embed with them and get to understand what they're dealing with.
Totally, totally. And a lot of people don't realize, I'm a training professional, yes, but at my heart, I'm a performance consultant. I help people build training that actually improves performance results. And, so that whole concept there is you identify a problem or what you think is a problem or what they think is the problem, and that's a hypothesis. And so now the job that we have is to go validate or invalidate that. That's the needs analysis phase of training, which most people don't actually do. They just go train to a problem and usually address just the symptoms of the problem, not the actual root causes. And so when you look at it from the perspective of hypothesis thinking and validation of those hypotheses, to your point, you can do things, you can accelerate performance quite considerably using simple concepts like minimal viable product. So in the marketing world, they don't get it out with perfection. They get it out and they redesign or continue to enhance it, continuous improvement over time. And actually, that's what I ended up doing with Master Facilitator. I've done that with all my products after the pandemic. It forced me to, just like everybody else, to have to rethink everything. And so I, instead of trying to figure out how to fix everything about training and the way I deliver it through the pandemic, I just went with MVP, minimal viable product, and launched it and then just iterated over time. That's how you get to results faster.
So when we look at, I don't know how many people are actually going to the training conference that are listening to this. I will be there. I know you'll be there.
Mhm.
Why would a person want to take 3 days with you? What are they going to get out of that? And I don't want you to like spill all the secrets
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
because there's a lot of good stuff, but what is one of the main takeaways they'll get?
Yeah. So one of the big differences between what Master Facilitator and what I do compared to almost everybody else in the trainer world of training is where most trainers focus on delivery, design, and content and all that. And it's all you need those skills. I go the next layer up of experience and expertise into facilitation. Because I don't know about you, I don't know where you learned your facilitation skills, but training delivery is not presenting. So we talk about presentations in this book, how to deliver a great presentation. But oftentimes, most presentations, including most training, is a monologue with hostages. It's just
Yep.
lecture, right? Whereas facilitation, it's a dialogue with the big difference here is I don't teach all the design. I don't spend all the time and teach you. I teach you facilitation techniques and how to take, for example, many of the trainers out there are always on the endless look for activities, training games. How can we make training engaging? Realistically, if you flip that on its head and become a facilitator, You don't need to be on this endless hunt. Now, you can still keep hunting if you want, but you'll realize that there's a process for facilitation, and you can take anything and everything and turn it into an experience and tie it back to real world situations. That's the connection point that's missing in most training, is that we might play a game, but we never tie it back to exposing a point or problem that they have back on the job, nor do we link it back to say, based on what you just experienced in this activity in the training, how does that relate back to the real world? We just play a game for the sake of playing games. So this course is all about taking it to the next level of you as a facilitator guiding people to revelations about the challenges that they face on the job and helping them build the mindset approach that's repeatable to actually take any content and make it engaging and get the transfer later.
One of the things you said that stuck with me also is I think one of the main reasons that we see presentations rather than facilitations, and that is facilitators will give up control for contribution.
Exactly. Great
And
quote.
giving up control is scary to some folks.
Yes.
What do you say to
Yes.
those folks who are like, look, I need my slide decks. I can't give up that control.
Slides, when done like that, are crutches, right? The greatest are the ones who have no slides. And if I were to strip away the slides, away your participant guide, strip away everything you had, the question is, could you still as a 3-day program? Now, I'm not saying that just to be, I've actually had that happen multiple times as a professional who trains in happened again back in September when I went to Saudi Arabia for Saudi Aramco. I went over there to teach a course on behalf of ATD. I'm one of the 6 teaches their master performance consultant course. A mentor of mine actually designed that program and sells it and licenses it to ATD, and he's pretty restrictive about who facilitate it. And as a disciple of his, I'm one of those. So I went over there. I worked with. I get over there, and none of the materials showed up. And there are tons of materials for that course. It's an advanced course that teaches you how to do consulting at a level of a Boston Consulting Group consultant or something like that. Didn't phase me one bit. I went off and I facilitated, and they were all amazed at how that looked. Now the reality is, good. You don't need all those things. Those things are aids that are helpful. But if you don't have those, you can still do it, that's when you know you're good. So the crutches, don't build your slides to use them as notes for you as a facilitator. I rarely ever look at my slides. In fact, oftentimes I forget they're even there. So something that a good facilitator does.
Yeah, that reminds me of of Bob's master trainer course. I remember he like day 2, he finally just looked at his and he said, "Look, I've got slides," and he just started clicking through them. He's like, "I just don't need them, but I wanted
Exactly.
to, big screen above him." He's like, "I just wanted you to know I have them. I just
Yeah.
when you do this right, you don't need them.
Right.
You don't." So tell me a little bit about askamasterfacilitator.com.
So Ask a Master Facilitator that came out of the pain of the pandemic. It's my video blog series. And over the years, people have always asked me questions about facilitation, how to be a speaker, all these different things. But I took that in the pandemic because the operative question, and from March of 2020 through the rest of that year, was how do we make training engaging, especially now when we're all virtual? That was a problem, a significant problem. In fact, it still is the number one question that trainers ask, and the number one problem that they have is how to, lack of participant engagement. How do we make our training engaging? So that, and part of what I was doing over time, I knew that I wanted to build micro learnings. So ultimately, I would take a question, 3 to 7 to sometimes a 10 or 13-minute micro learning video to answer that question. And so now here we are. I know, I think I'm over 100 and some videos. Amazing. So it's my way of giving back to you and I and to so many of us, to give back to that community, to say, hey, do that you can't cover in just a day or 2 or 3. Let me give you some asynchronous on-demand content that you can take when you're ready. You can watch it and get some answers to your most challenging questions. And now I just keep running with it, and it's been a blast.
I enjoy them. I think they're very good. Keep doing them because I keep learning, and it allows me to stalk from a distance. So there's that too. Let me ask you this: a lot of people hear you talking, and they're just like, "Wow, you're going to Saudi Arabia, you're going to Oman." How did you get from sitting alone at dinner to where you are today? I mean, you talked earlier about going to that table and having Bob notice you. Tell me about the journey from starting out to where you are today, and if someone's listening and they want that journey, is that still
Mhm.
something that people can do, or is it a saturated market and they should look at something else?
Absolutely can do. And even if you are doing something that there's a saturated or appears to be a saturated market, Ron and many other prognosticators will tell you this. You want to go in a lane where there's demand. And so if there's a lot of people doing it, that tells you that there's demand. The key for you then will be yourself and add value in a different way so that you can get a. So how did I do that? Interestingly enough, Dwayne, I was a big follower of Bob Pike, obviously, but also of John Maxwell go all over the world. And I had traveled a bit international. Jamaica Customer Service Association was kind of like my first international gig. They saw me as a trainer and they had me come down, and I've done keynotes for them like three or four. And by the way, if you can get a keynote with the Jamaica Customer Service Association, sandals as a sponsor, you get a free sandals trip out the plug for them. but but then when I here's where I got the international ATD, because I started working and doing conferences a lot for them, and they would see me, and as my speaker stuff grew in they knew I had international clients as a subcontractor in the oil and gas industry. So let me be an international speaker trainer, tie yourself, get yourself. You can't do it on your own. Like I couldn't subcontract provide services internationally. So I did that with a company that used to be called Randy Smith Training Solutions. They were in the oil and gas industry. And out of the 30 I've been to, I went to, I think it was 20 of them, Smith, and building out that experience, understanding how things work. And then ATD, when they started doing a lot more training and jumped in on some of that, and I started facilitating some of the courses for them, experience and all that. So that led me to getting business with ATD through their international networks and favored that way. So I just built now, just over the course of time, I've learned how to do it consistently. Prior to the pandemic, I would do 5 or 6 international. Last year was the first time after the pandemic that I hit one, where I went to Saudi Arabia twice, to Taiwan once, and that was enough with my domestic travel to go to 1K again. So if you want to do that, someone who's already got the business, so that you don't have to, take the contracts overseas are a little bit sketchy and challenging at times.
It seems like a lot of your story involves you tying yourself with people as kind of a mentee, and that shows to me a lot of humility. How important do you think
Yes.
it is to find those mentors and to start those relationships?
Super important. To your point, I always tell them the people grow together where they go together. And so you've got to have sponsors, you've got to have mentors, you've got to have someone, because John Mack, one is too small a number to be successful in any. Success is always about collaboration, partnerships, sponsorships. I think a lot of people know that, but they don't really understand. So I learned early on as an African American male who wanted to and aren't known for doing. I wanted to stand out. So I had to go, and I need to go talk to people who were doing the things ahead of me, the Bob Pikes, Maxwell's, the Ann Bruces, all these people who are great. You know what? It's funny if you just ask people, just ask them. And all of a sudden they'll start to, they'll take an interest in you. So mentoring and getting sponsorships, that's the key. And then you run with it and make those people proud.
Yeah, you reminded me of a quote that I use for our mastermind group at work, and the quote that I put out there is, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go fast, together."
Yeah.
I think that's it. If you want to go far, go together. You're
Mhm.
not going to go. You'll go a lot farther when you have that mentor. Well, listen,
Mhm.
I appreciate you taking the time. We're going to wrap this up. I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. Is it already next month?
It's not.
At
Yeah, it's right around the corner. We're gonna have a lot of fun down there as we always do at Training Magazine.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to buy that, buy my ticket. I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, I need to do that. But I'll see you there. I'm looking forward to it.
Mhm.
Where can people reach you if they want to talk to you, or if they're looking for a mentor?
Yeah, so my website is just my name, sardiklove.com. So that's the hub. Or you can get there through, as Dwayne talked about, my Ask a Master Facilitator blog. So you can just go askamasterfacilitator.com. And that is actually tied to my website. So once you get to the blog, you're already on my website. So reach out to me. We haven't done it just yet. We're about to open it up where on the Ask a Master Facilitator page, if people want to submit a question, they can submit it and we'll take it under advisement and potentially get your answer to your question as a recording from me. So that's going to be coming soon.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Sardik, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. I
My pleasure.
appreciate you, and so many lessons that I got from that 3 days of certification with you. I couldn't bring them all out. I was actually going through my notebooks the other day, and I was like, oh, there's just so much to talk about here. Couldn't cover it all in half an hour, not even close. But I appreciate you. Thanks for doing this, and I'll see you next month.
My pleasure. And thank you for having me. And you're awesome, man. Thank you.
I hit stop way too early. I would
That's
have.
okay.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll let you know
You're
when this is
welcome.
up and live.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'll post it out there and share it with my audience as well. So get some eyeballs on your stuff. So, and good stuff with this, man. You got some good people on here.
It's going pretty good. I'm going to try to get Elaine Beek on next. I know there's a lot of people out there. I'd like to talk to
Mhm.
her. She told me once that she writes her books in about 2 weeks, and I was like, "You write a book in
Yeah.
2 weeks?" And she said, "Yeah, I keep telling people this. I'll tell you how to do it." And so I called her and she walked me through it. And she said, "Well, first thing I do is decide what I'm going to write a book on, and then I collect all the material on the book, and then when I feel I have enough, I just sequester myself in a cabin for 2 weeks." I'm
Mhm.
like, that sounds like months of research and then
Mhm.
writing the book.
Yeah.
That's not 2 weeks, but I get what you're saying. So I think I might talk to her about that. But she's got so many books back here on my shelf too. But anyway,
That's
I
crazy. Well,
appreciate
I'll
you.
tell you this.
Sure.
Halele Azulay took her. I know Halele took her program and she did it. She was able to write her book, first book, I think, in that 2 week period. So whatever Elaine does, it works in
Yeah.
that respect.
She's
Yeah,
definitely churning out stuff. So all right.
yeah.
Thanks again. I'll see you next month.
You got it, brother. All right, and thanks again for this. Good luck with it, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Cheers.